Alex, we are live.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name's Alex Vidal. I am the Regional Vice President for Coldwell Banker here in DFW. And welcome to our education series that is not only in DFW, but we have people from Houston and Austin checking it out. And this round of education series topics are brought to you because of you guys. This is what you wanted to hear. And we wanted to give you guys feedback or give you guys information that you can use in your business. And today, we are joined by a true rock star and athlete who motivated me to work out this morning after I saw her Instagram post. Katie Day, who is a team lead of one of our biggest teams in Houston. And Katie's going to talk to us about open houses and staging and their best practices. I know that we're doing open houses left and right, and we want to crush them as much as we can. So whenever you're ready, Katie, the stage is yours. Say hello.
Hey, what's going on? Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat today about open houses. Basically, I kind of broke down our action plan and what we do for open houses here in Houston for our listings and for our open houses. I broke it down basically into like the preparation and getting, ready for the open house, and then, the day of and kind of the follow-up plan after that. So the first slide is preparation. So one of the things that I think is most important is planning in advance. A lot of people, think on a Thursday or a Friday, hey, I don't have anything going on this weekend. Let me do an open house. And we always recommend to plan it far in advance. So, when we know we have new listings coming up, that's normally enough in advance notice by a week or 2 weeks to know that we can block out that time for, Saturday or Sunday coming up. But generally we want to plan about 5 to 7 days out. So we have a team meeting every Tuesday morning. So that's normally when we plan out our weekend. I know office meetings are a great opportunity as well for, to look over listings, see what's coming soon in your office, and, plan out your open houses for the weekend. When we're looking at open houses, I think some things to consider are the area that you're doing them in. So if you're a newer agent or you have a farm already, I would focus on one specific area. I know that when I first joined our office a few years ago, in wanting to get as much experience as possible, anytime someone wanted an open house, I would raise my hand and I would go and do it. So I was doing open houses in Spring and Pearland, all over. It would be like for Dallas people, it would be, being like in Fort Worth, then in Dallas proper, then in South Lake, and just kind of all over. So pick your neighborhood or pick your area and really try to stick to that as far as doing open houses. If you don't have a farm, being at new construction or near new construction is always beneficial because everyone likes looking at new houses. So it's a good opportunity to get in a lot of conversations, talk to a lot of people, things like that. And then also the price point and area.
That's a great idea, Katie, by the way. I want to make sure people write that down. Being near new construction is a beautiful thing because you're right, because they're doing a lot of the advertising for you and driving traffic to the neighborhood. Great idea.
Yeah. And then price point or area. So, we know at least here in Houston, if it's $250,000 or less, it's going to fly off the shelves. It's going to get listed and have multiple offers almost immediately. 300, 350 is still sometimes in that same realm. So depending on where things are for your specific area or neighborhood, planning out open houses accordingly may make sense. So a lot of times when we list a home on a Wednesday or a Thursday, we'll restrict showings until that Saturday. From a COVID perspective and a safety perspective, it's great because we can tell the seller, hey, especially if it's occupied, we're going to have an open house on Saturday from 12 to 4 and Sunday from 12 to 4. That way they know they only need to clean their house once, right? If they had 33 showings over Wednesday to Saturday, I mean, how frustrating is that for a seller to have to come home and clean their house and wipe everything down and turn on all the lights? And it's a lot.
Sure.
So planning in advance, again, we discuss it on Tuesday for Saturday, Sunday open houses. Add it to your calendar, confirm it with the seller, and then make sure that it's in the MLS, especially if you're hosting for another agent in your office. Make sure that it's in the MLS and up and, being advertised and all that. Next up in the 5 to 7 day time frame of preparation are invitations. So when you are planning out an open house, you want to, at minimum, get an email blast out to your sphere, to your prospects that are looking. It's a great opportunity to reach out to those older leads, or we characterize them as B or C leads, so people that are looking a little bit further out maybe 90 days, 6 months out, a year out. Hey, I'm hosting an open house in the neighborhood that you said you wanted to look in. Come by, let me know what you think of the house. The seller would always love feedback. And it's a really easy way to have a touch on those prospects that, you may otherwise not have a reason to call. We door knock prior to open houses. So we'll print up a flyer basically inviting, neighbors to the open house or notifying them of the listing. And we'll just door knock, invite them. Depending on the area, you can either do flyers or door hangers. If door knocking isn't something that is either allowed, because some neighborhoods don't allow it, or comfort level of the neighborhood, sometimes varies depending on area of town, mailers can also work. So if you're planning something that's a week or 2 weeks out, you can have mailers prepared and send those out like an invitation to a party. So there's lots of different ways to invite people to your open house.
Katie, saying I'm a huge door knocker. I love it. That's when I sold real estate. That's all I did.
Yeah.
What are you saying at the door for the open house? Is it a simple invite, or are you saying something in addition?
Yeah. So, I think that everyone thinks that you're there to sell something, so I'm there to invite them to the open house. Hey, your neighbor, the line that I always like to use whenever we're making calls or whenever we're door knocking or anything like that around our listings or around sales is, hey, your neighbor asked me to reach out to see if you knew of anyone that may be looking to the neighborhood. We're hosting an open house. I wanted to give you an invitation, and then you hand it to them, and then depending on how the conversation goes, I always like asking what they like about the neighborhood, how long they've lived there, and see, and if they kind of question you on that, I always say, hey, like, I always like to know what the neighbors think or what the neighbors like about the area, just so we can tell buyers about how great it is here or something to that effect.
For sure. Okay.
And then finally, social media. So this is really where I think there's a lot of benefit as far as, for your sellers and for other potential sellers and for clients. So no matter what you use, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of the above, whatever it may be, you want to get an event out there. So Facebook's a great way to create an event on your business page. Videos, so whether you have a professional video done or a quick little, pan from your phone or a Facebook Live or something like that, you want to have some sort of video promoting the open house, just regular graphics that say open house and the address and time and house, photos, and then using like Facebook, and Instagram stories to post about the open house as well. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of put the word out, in preparation of the open house, having that out 5 to 7 days or more in advance.
Yeah. So what it looks like is, most people think of the open house as an opportunity to meet buyers at the actual open house. Based on this, and I know we haven't even gotten into closer to the day of, you're using this as every advantage to put content out there related to your real estate activity.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, especially for more experienced agents that don't like doing open houses, I think that the open houses and the reason why we call, the people around the area, the reason why we door knock, the reason why we're reaching out to neighbors is for sale opportunities. So if you're using Listing Concierge and you've already sent out a mailer, that's the just listed mailer, that's the trifold brochure, chances are they've seen that with your face on it. Now you've sent them another mailer with an invite to the open house or left something on their doorstep. Perhaps you did speak to them in person and they have your business card as well. So you're getting more and more touches with people. And, the studies show that other homes go up for sale once someone sells. They say, oh, Alex just sold his home for $300,000. I thought we were only worth $250,000. Maybe we should sell. Maybe we should move up. So it's just getting in those conversations and touches with people, cool. that I find a benefit.
I love it. We're always looking for reasons, so I love it.
Yeah. So coming up next, on the next page, basically for preparation, kind of 1 to 2 days out. So we always have packets at our open houses. One of the main things too, I think, is whenever we're having conversations with people and meeting people at open houses, we want to see how we can add value to their home search. So this is something that a lot of people don't even hand out anything at an open house. COVID or not, pre-COVID, they weren't handing anything out. They'd walk in, they'd say, hey, take a look around, let me know what you think. And they wouldn't get up, off their chair in the kitchen. I think, handing them something, whether or not you're doing that, you can do an electronic handout, with a QR code that it sends to them or, paper handouts. But basically we include a list report. List reports in Houston, I know that we have our guaranteed rate affinity lender has a sponsorship for List Reports, and it's a great report that provides information about the home and the neighborhood. Okay. We print off an MLS client report, so the client page that you would give to a buyer, a CMA of other homes that have sold in the area. And then the other thing that we do that I think is a little bit different is we include other open houses in the area. Okay, because most buyers that are at an open house, obviously are driving around on their own most of the time, but I include the other open houses so that, hey, if, this one isn't a good fit, there's 4 other houses in the neighborhood that are being held open. Go ahead and stop by. I'd love to know what you think of those homes. There you go.
Yeah. Now, on the packages, are you giving them out to everybody, regardless if they express an interest in the property or not?
Yeah. So normally, the way that I normally do it is if, I'll greet someone, I'll bring them over to wherever, all of my paperwork is, and I'll register them, I'll get their information and all that. I may hand it to them then, or, once they've toured and once we've walked around, I may hand it to them after. It really kind of just depends, but every single person, I at least give it to them because it has the stats on the house, obviously. And then it has other information about, other open houses and things like that. I'd say maybe twice someone's like, no, I don't want it. But most of the time people, if you hand them something with a smile, they'll take it and, throw it away once they leave, at least not in front of your face.
Got it. And what are you putting? Are the packages going in? And I told you we'd freestyle a little bit too.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about it, and we'll get questions as we go. So, all right. So you're getting these packages. Is it something that's stapled? Are you putting them in Coldwell Banker folders? What are you doing with the actual package?
Yeah. So as far as that goes, I mean, we normally will have everything just kind of stapled together, because it's just like 4 or 5 pages, of paper. And then as far as depending on the conversation or whatever, we also have buyer consultation guides. You can print those off in Moxie. You can make your own. You can have it, sponsored by a lender, whatever it may be. So we have other materials there that if they're like, no, I just started looking, I have no idea how to buy a home, we'll put all of that stuff into a folder and hand it to them. But normally just like the packet itself is just a couple pieces of paper, stapled together. Obviously, depending on the price point or neighborhood, you may want to step that up a little bit and have them in, books or folders. But for a general open house, when we're like, the 300 range or less, we're just going stapled papers.
And last question regarding packages, because I know people are thinking about, I am at least. How many are you doing? Like, how many are you taking with you?
So it depends on the open. I would say, normally we would print 20. And obviously, if you have the electronic option as well, or have everything as a PDF on your computer, you can email it to people if for some reason you run out. But if it's a $250,000 house in a neighborhood where there's 1 month of inventory and homes are going under contract within an hour, minutes, maybe you print 50. So it really just kind of depends on the neighborhood and the area, but normally 20 is, I think, a good amount for just a normal open house.
Cool.
Okay. Awesome. So as far as preparation, 1 to 2 days out, making your packets early and having those ready is always good. Invitations. So I had mentioned earlier door knocking, just digging a little bit deeper into that again, 1 to 2 days out. Normally, if you're doing a Saturday or Sunday open house, we'll on Thursday or Friday go door knock, hit, homes in a radius around that home. Again, it's a great way to be able to have more conversations with people. One thing that we've noticed since, we've been opening up a little bit more in Texas, obviously, and, open houses have been, a thing, is a lot of people are home. They're working from home. They probably are doing most of their communication over Zoom. So seeing people in real life, and I think, Alex, you might have mentioned this on another panel that you did, but it's like seeing people in real life. They're like, let's have a conversation, So it's definitely been interesting over the past few weeks how that's gone as opposed to maybe this time last year.
I went door knocking with an agent of ours, Josh Winkler in Plano. And we had great success. I think at least 40 to 50% of the people were home. That's a whole nother topic on door knocking. I could preach that all day. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Everybody is home, and for the most part, they will talk to you.
Yeah. And again, like door knocking is the one of the cheapest ways to be able to make contact and have conversations with people. And that's, obviously the more conversations you have, the more homes you're going to sell. So we'll let that one lay and move on. But I could also talk about door knocking for hours. Finally, supplies. So, as I was saying earlier, obviously you have your packets. You also want to have some sort of buyer consultation guide or information. Again, we're trying to add value here. Lender info. So, if you have a preferred lender, having their business cards or their information, just to be able to hand it, to them. Obviously, your own business cards are something that you should bring to your open house. And then Lysol like spray or wipes, Clorox wipes, something like that, and air freshener are always good. I actually also have Windex in my trunk, and paper towels, just because if you come in and the mirrors are all stained and the counters are dirty, wiping those down is always good. And then I wish I were in the office because we have these stools, but basically there's $20 stools on Amazon. If the home is vacant, 2 hours or 4 hours is going to get really old if you're standing around all day. So we have these little foldable stools that you should always bring if it's a vacant house, so that you don't, and then finally, 2020, we have a small package of masks, gloves if people want them, and then hand sanitizer at the open as well, just so that if someone doesn't have one, you request that they wear it while they're inside the home. But yeah, that's about it for kind of 1 to 2 days out. The other thing that I didn't mention on invitations is if door knocking isn't something that is acceptable in the area that you're trying to do an open house, the other thing that you can do is circle prospecting. And basically what that's going to be is calling homes around the area of where the listing is. So we circle prospect on our new listings to notify the neighborhood of the new listing. And basically we'll start out with, I guess, probably 25 homes. We normally go up to 50 in a radius around, the listing, to notify them of the listing. And again, kind of have that conversation of, well, what do you like about the neighborhood? How long have you lived there? Well, this home is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath at $350. How does that compare to yours? And things like that. And again, just trying to have those real estate conversations with people as well. So yeah, I think that's it as far as preparation. On the next slide is information about kind of the day of. So as far as the day of, if signs are allowed, because I know some subdivisions and towns don't allow them, but if signs are allowed, you should be putting 20 to 30 or more, 20 to 30 those signs out directing people to your open house. Okay, so you're going to start at the highway or the major intersections and come into the house. I like that, I guess, think about if there's more than one route to the neighborhood, so if there's a front entrance and a back entrance, or how you can get there from major highways or thoroughfares. And I like to see 4 to 6 signs in every intersection. So you think if it's a 4-way stop, or if it's a stop sign, that you have 2 on this side and 2 on that side, all showing you to take a left here. But you want to lead them into the community. If there's twists and turns to get to the house, you're going to want to put some throughout the community. And then depending on how difficult it is to get to that house, you may want to put your contact info on some of those signs, or the address and time, or things like that. But 20 to 30 signs, I think, are imperative for sure.
Now, Katie, this is gonna, and you probably answer this in the next slide when you're the day of and the open house itself. But if you're putting 20 to 30 signs out, are you doing the open house by yourself, or are you having someone with you and you're carrying the load of the 20 to 30 signs?
Yeah, and that was actually something in preparation that I didn't mention. So one of the other things too is if you're going to have a co-host for the open house. So from a bandwidth perspective, as well as a safety perspective, consider having a lender or an insurance company or something like that there with you, or another agent. So normally what we'll do is, if it's more than one agent at an open house, I go, you go, and I get this first lead, you get the second lead, I get the third, you get the fourth. And then as far as signs go, it really kind of depends on the area. Sometimes we'll put the signs out the night before so that they're there, first thing in the morning. Other times, like say if it's a 1 to 4 open, like maybe I would go out in the morning at 8 a.m., put them all out, go home, shower, get ready. I know some of the agents on our team have spouses and children, so those are always helpful. when needing to put out signs, or otherwise it may just be putting them out on your own. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of options, but I normally like to do it kind of like ahead of time, right? Do it in the morning, go home, shower, and then put them out. If that's not an option, I'll normally wear shorts and a t-shirt to put them out and then like change at the house before they open. Just so, in a Texas summer, you're not.
So, okay. So another question, if you're putting them out that early, sorry, I like to get a little granular sometimes. When you're putting them out that early, do the open house signs have the time of the open house on them?
So it depends. I mean, with obviously like 20 or 30 signs, you can do either the ones that have like tape on them so you can dry erase right the time, or you can tape, like nicely tape, a printed piece of paper with that info. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just put one at the house with the time, the day and time, and I might put that out on, Monday or Tuesday to notify people as they're driving by that it's going to be open this weekend. You can obviously do the riders that go on top of your sign, or lots of different companies sell the ones that are the full, I guess they're probably 24 inches by 36 inches that you can put in the front yard. But that's definitely good if you have like a new listing that, you put it out on a Wednesday and it's out there until Saturday.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, and then as far as getting the house ready, lights on, blinds open, fans on, make sure it smells good, looks good. All of the blinds should be open. It should be bright, especially now, depending on the status of the closets. If they look good, I would open doors to closets, open the pantry door, things like that, just so people don't have to touch things to look inside. If the seller has taken all of their things around their home and put them in the closet, we may not want to open those doors, but just use your better judgment there. And finally, as far as preparation goes on the day of, something else that I'll do is either a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live, just to kind of put, again, additional content out there about the listing, additional information about the open house. And then it's a good link to be able to send to a buyer that maybe have been looking at that neighborhood. Hey, I know you said you wanted to try to come by, you didn't make it. Here's a link to the video. Let me know what you think, and if you want to set up a private tour. So you have something else to be able to send out to people.
Okay.
And then finally, registration. So when people come in, I think that now more than ever, it's so important to have people register at an open house. I think, especially with COVID, let me step back a little. So previously, people would be iffy about signing in or whatever. We always just said, hey, the seller requests for safety, reasons that everyone signs in just so they know who was here or whatever. But especially now with COVID, I think that it's even more important and imperative for everyone to sign in, because if something did happen and someone contacted you and said, hey, I was at your open house and I contracted COVID, I think we have an obligation then, we have an obligation then to, contact the people that came, right? So I think just from a safety perspective, no matter where you stand, that's something that's important. And also from a safety perspective is your personal safety, with realtors at open houses, you need everyone to sign in. So we always ask them to register. What we found to have success with recently is doing it on my phone or my computer, but I'm asking you the questions rather than before I would just hand you my phone and you would do it. Most people don't want to touch other people's things these days. So I'll just ask you, okay, hey, what's your name? Alex, great. Last name, okay, great. And kind of make it a little bit more conversational. I like doing it electronically versus paper. I think that it's just, we're in 2020, we shouldn't be writing things down anymore. And also I like it electronically because I can have it pushed to my CRM and put them on a follow-up plan, because I can guarantee you if you have, your paper copy of your sign-in sheet, it probably falls in your trunk. And 6 months later, you're like, oh crap, I did an open house 6 months ago. I never called any of these people. You want to minimize the amount of human error that can occur as much as possible.
Got it.
So yeah, that's kind of it as far as registration. And then I think what I had added on the next slide is basically just kind of once you're there, what are you doing? One of the things that I think, all of the things that we're doing to prepare for the open house should, help us to have a successful open house with lots of people coming in. If we're advertising it days in advance, if we're putting out signs, we're doing all of the things that, should get people in the door. People, bring your computer with you, bring your phone with you, have all of your things. And if people aren't coming in the door, this is the perfect opportunity to follow up with old leads. Like, what are people doing on weekends? They're normally free. So like the chances of them answering the phone are way higher than it is on Monday at noon. So, use this time to continue to build your business. Use this time to watch that YouTube video you've been putting off. Use this time to read a book on, sales skills or something like that. So think about this as 2 hours or 4 hours of uninterrupted time for you to be able to continue to, work on your skills and things like that. As far as at the open house, these are just 3 additional points that I wanted to make. One is, how can you add value? I think that we get so caught up in, hey, this person's coming in and I want them to be my buyer, that you kind of lose sight of like helping them. And it's like, well, where are you looking? What price point are you in? Are you pre-approved? And if I just met you, Alex, and we have no rapport and I'm asking you if you can afford this home, like chances are you're going to be a little turned off by that, right? So how can I add value? And the question of that is like, where are you in your search? Are you in the research phase? Or are you in the transactional phase? And if you can find that out or determine that by questions that you ask, you'll be able to help way more people. So like research phase is like the people that are trying to figure out schools. They're trying to figure out what neighborhoods to be in. They're trying to figure out where they can afford to buy. They're the ones that are, maybe 8 to 12 or more months out. We find internet leads that are contacting us 2 years out or 24 months out or 18 months out. These are those people that are like, well, this house, I favored it on, Zillow, had an open house, so we're going to stop by. So they don't know much. If I asked you, Alex, like, hey, how long have you been searching for homes? And you told me,
3 years.
Yeah, I've been looking for, okay, well, you're probably, well, maybe not 3 years, but, 6 months, you're probably a little bit more transactional. You're probably ready if you found that right home to pull the trigger, right? So being able to ask them, how long they've been looking, what websites they're using to look at homes, things like that, how they're going to visit homes. So if they say open houses or they say, oh, well, my agent takes me. Okay, great. Are all good questions to be able to kind of build some rapport and learn. I think if you went into 10 open houses, a lot of agents would be like, hey, Alex, like, how you doing? You don't like this house? Oh, well, like, let me get your email so I can send you properties.
Yeah.
And any buyer that's like serious about buying a house already has their Zillow search set up. They also have it on, HAR.com or Dallas, whatever your Dallas, portal is. They also have it from 4 real estate agents that are all sending them the same home. So like they're getting properties, now is not, 19, I don't know what, but they've got properties. They don't need your properties. So the 3 questions that we always ask are, has anyone taken the time to do a buyer consultation with you yet? Obviously, if they say that they've been looking with a realtor, that may not be the question to ask, but has anyone taken the time to do a buyer consultation with you yet? If they say no, and say, hey, I'd love to sit down, blah, 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 move that in. If they're more transactional and you can tell they know exactly what streets they want to be on, which streets in the neighborhood they want to be on, which side of the highway they want to be on, things like that. Has anyone taken the time to review all of the off-market properties with you? And that could be, expireds and terminated listings. That could be, FSBOs on Zillow. That could be a lot of different things. But most people are just going to send you a search from MLS and push that over to you and say, hey, let me know what you think of these properties. And as we know, in most markets, inventory is tight. So let's look at old listings that expired. Let's look at, FSBOs. Let's look at other things to see if there could be options for our buyers.
Okay.
And then the third question is, if they want to write an offer.
Ooh.
I mean, and clearly it may not be that blunt, but I think that we don't ask because like we don't want them to say no. But if you don't ask, you're never going to know. So hey, so what did you think? Do you want to write an offer? And if they laugh and say no, you're like, okay, great. Well, what did you not like about the home, or why not? And it could be that they're not pre-approved. It could be that they had one other house they wanted to see. It could be a whole number of things. But if you don't ask, I mean, if you ask and they say yes, then you may have just picked up a buyer,
Yeah, it's so funny because the same thing happens to us as leaders if we're talking to an agent. Sometimes we don't even ask for the appointment. Like, hey, Katie, we need to meet. Oh no, well, I love my broker. Well, what do you love about your broker so much? Same thing. What you're doing is you're isolating the objection. Is, hey, it seems like you really love the home. Want to write an offer? And they may say yes, or they may say no. Well, what's preventing you from wanting to make an offer? And they're going to tell you, well, I'm not pre-approved yet, or we're still looking. Oh, how do you plan on looking at those homes? I mean, you can really use that advantage to go back and forth with them to go down that rabbit hole and find out where you can interject yourself as the realtor. I love that.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
It's such a blunt question that will lead to action. It's not even funny. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And then finally, I think that the number one goal for every open house is to secure an appointment. So, whether that's going out after the open house with a buyer to show them other homes, whether that's sitting down with someone to go over, the home buying process and do a buyer consultation and really understand what they're looking for, whatever that may, or to go sit down and write an offer, but whatever that may be, that should be your goal, is to give each person the undivided attention to determine if, they're going to want to move forward with you, or there's some way in which you can help them, or not. But one appointment should be your goal every single open house.
So let me ask you a question, Katie. How are you handling the people walking through the open house because of COVID? Are you letting them in one at a time? Are you just letting multiple families in at a time? How are you handling that right now?
Yeah, so it'll depend on, kind of the home and all that. We've gone back and forth on, like, depending on the neighborhood of the home, like setting up a table outside and having people register outside and then walking them through. So in situations like that, you may want two parties. In some of them, when depending on weather and whatnot, we'll just be inside, and then kind of as you see people pull up, maybe run to the door and be like, hey, like, just 1 second, you can come in. I took a few clients out to open houses. I guess it was last weekend or the weekend before, and I felt awkward, and it may just be me because I feel like I'm more conservative on the, safety. But like, there were lots of people in the open house and I felt a little uncomfortable. I didn't ask them if they felt comfortable or uncomfortable, but normally, like, we try to limit it to, one party at a time, or one family or one group at a time. And obviously it kind of, again, depends on the price point and the house. If that you're going to have 30 plus people, it may make sense to have a table set up outside.
Yeah, thinking about open house signs, you could almost put open house signs 6 feet apart from each other and have people wait at an open house sign, right? And then when people are walking by, they're going to see a line of people out the door, almost like at a restaurant or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, what's going on? And you create that fear of loss, and then you could FaceTime that. Or Instagram live that and be like, look at this line outside. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you want
it.
to home? Call me, Right. Okay. So we got some Q&A here that I kind of want to go through and let's see what we got. When you're doing the door knocking, that circle prospect. Well, before we go into questions, let me ask you, are you good with your presentation? You want to add anything before we go into Q&A?
No, I mean, I think that was it as far as like actual slides. I mean, I just put a few words on paper, but I think that's it. So.
All right, good deal. All right, so what time of the day, when you do go door knocking for the circle prospecting, what time of the day are you doing it? And are you going by yourself or are you going with someone?
It depends. Normally, well, and especially now in the fall, winter time, it gets darker earlier. So normally we'll do like the 4 to 6 time frame. I think right now it's getting dark at like 5:30.
Yeah.
So I would say doing it from like 3 to 5 or 3 to 4, just keeping safety in mind. A lot of times we'll do 2 people, so we'll have someone else on the team go, and then you can like leapfrog, down a street, and like I'll hit one and then you'll walk to the next one and then we'll come back around. And then yeah, so just from a safety perspective and time perspective, it's a lot more efficient, with more than one person.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think you should, tackle each person on each side of the street and just go down that street to tackle it. And I agree with you. I think that 2 to 5, 3 to 5 time frame is amazing. Now, when you're doing the circle prospecting regarding that listing, what days are you doing it? Are you doing it like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday because it's close to it, or it doesn't matter?
I think if you're calling people to actually just invite them to the open house, it clearly should be a little bit closer. Normally we'll do, circle prospecting for the new listing, like as the listing agent, I do it for the new listing. But if you're calling specifically just for the open house, I would say probably, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday would all be acceptable.
Okay, cool deal. So we have an anonymous asked question, which is, I have a QR code. I use a QR code, too much coffee this morning, an 800 number to text the info and still have a tough time getting people to sign in. What would you recommend? I do many of the things you mentioned to plan and prep and usually get a solid group of people to attend. My last weekend resulted in 37 groups in 2 days. My biggest challenge is getting visitors to sign in. Do you make it mandatory?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of it's the tone and how you ask. Like if I go to hand you a pen and I'm like, could you sign in? And it's like a question, and like you might just say no, then like what do I do at that point? Sure. So I think I do it one of two ways. Before it used to be that I would just hand them my phone. Like once we toured the house and got back to the kitchen, most vertical living here in Houston is like a 2 or 3 story home, right? So once we come back to the second floor, I would hand them my phone and be like, here, please register. And I would walk away and they would just have my phone in their hands and I would go get them, their little packet and take it back to them. So that was like, kind of in the touching, people's things. Now, I think that if as you greet them and bring them inside the house or bring them to wherever your materials are, I think I would just say, hey, let me get you registered. What was your first name again? Or how do you spell Alex? Maybe that's not a great question to ask you, but what was your first name again? Alex. Okay, great. And how do you spell your last name? Wonderful. What's the best email address to reach you at? And then I think a lot of times what people say is like, hey, I have an agent. Like from a safety perspective, I still need you to register. So I would just say to that, like, hey, okay, great, Alex, I can put your agent's information in here so I can follow up with them to see what you thought of the house. What's their email?
Got it. Okay. It's funny. I thought you'd be more blunt about it. I thought you'd just be like, hey, we require everybody that walks through the home to be registered because of coronavirus. I have an agent. Great. We'll include their information, but we need everybody to, and it's crazy when you change it from a question to, hey, this is a necessity, you more than likely get them to sign up.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that, for some people, it may need to be that one, if they're like, well, I don't really want to, and blah, 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 blah. And be like, okay, well, if you want to see this house, this is what you're going to need to do. May get to that point. But, I think that either way, just, hey, what's your name? Okay, great. Let's get you registered, especially if you have more than one person. Say if you're greeting them at the front door, if I'm greeting them at the front door and then Alex, you're over in the kitchen, I'm going to say, hey, Joe, it's great to meet you. Head on over to the kitchen and get registered with Alex and he'll give you information on the house. And you guys could kind of tag team that. And that's like, it's more of a command than a question. So just some thoughts on language there.
Now, I know you're going for new open house signs because you had a poll on your Instagram account regarding whether you should do the rectangle or if you should do the ones with the arrow. So the question is, are you using branded open house signs?
Yes.
All right, good deal.
100% yes. So if you can find local companies in your market that print signs, I'll give a plug. So in Houston, we use Premier Realty Services. They're a photo company and they also make signs and they can do custom signs. So if you tell them like, this is what I want it to look like, they can make it. I like the arrow signs, but they don't have the North Star arrow signs like in Lowen and in D signs, some of our preferred providers for Coldwell Banker. So Premier actually made them for me. So if there's any agents that are looking for the arrow signs with the CB North Star, they've got a template already made. But where else was I going with that?
Bottom line is
no, it should totally be branded. Like you want your name out there over and over again, especially if you're a new agent and you're focusing in a specific neighborhood, because people don't understand agency. So if they just see Katie Day, the moving to Texas team, they're like, man, they've got so many listings. They're so busy. They're always out here. They're always whatever. You may have no listings, but your name is the one that they're seeing over and over again.
Got it. Are you using Kohl's to get your phone numbers, the Circle Prospect?
So we use Kohl for a while, and then there's also like a Premier Kohl. I don't know that we had kind of like paid into to use that as well. We also call FSBOs and expired, so we use
Red X?
Vulcan and Red X. Yeah. So like we use paid services. But like Cole is definitely a good resource, especially if you're, looking to do this on a budget, to find numbers.
Yeah, and Tatum last week does a lot of circle prospecting, and he uses Red X. So now this is an interesting question. Do you recommend having seller packets with you as well, as there may be neighbors that are possibly interested in selling their home?
So totally, right? And that's also why we include the comps, because then at least it's like, hey, this is what's been selling in the neighborhood, and then you can kind of go over the data. How does that compare to your home? Well, hey, it looks like this data may not be completely accurate for your home. I'd love to pull some numbers, and I can either bring them by, tomorrow, or email it to you. Which would you prefer? And then get that. But one of the things that we used to do back when, you would want to pack a bunch of people into a house to make it look crazy busy, is we would say do an open house from 12 to 2 or 12 to whatever, but from 11 to 12, we would have a neighbor preview, and neighbors could come over, and we would have just seller packets. But in a time where you only want one person in at a time, like I think just having a CMA, is sufficient.
Got it. Okay. So it's 12:43. We're gonna lightning round these questions. So I do want to get into staging. Okay. And I typically try to end these at 10:45. So we're gonna go a little over. So lightning round. What app are you using to get them to sign in?
So right now we're using an app called Spacio, SPACIO, and that's because it reads directly into our CRM. So we just started trying that out on a trial.
Cool. All right. Are you using Prospect Square to send out open house to your prospects and to your clients?
We send them through our CRM, but obviously if you have a Sphere in Prospect Square, that's a great opportunity to be able to do that.
Got it. Okay. What is circle block calling? Circle prospecting is calling around the listing. Do your open house, I know the answer to this, do your open house signs ever get taken? The city around me will sometimes take the directionals.
100%. I would say, well, no, 98%. And then the 2% is agents forgetting to pick them up.
Yeah, that's right. So make sure you buy cheap branded open house signs that you can replace on a regular basis. And then the anonymous, this is more of a statement than a question. Also offer our clients for life campaign sign up. Such a great tool to use to gather emails, especially during a month when we have a giveaway taking place. Absolutely right. Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous, thank you for contributing. All right, 16 minutes to tackle staging. Talk to me about staging. And we're going to Q&A this, like just you and me. We don't have a presentation on this. What is the determining factor for you to even offer staging to begin with?
So we always recommend staging. I think that.
Did you say you always recommend it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that, again, it kind of comes down to price point and what is going on in the neighborhood. So we have a lot of neighborhoods in Houston that are kind of developing neighborhoods. So there's a lot of new construction. So if you're a resale home in that market, it's difficult, because I could buy a home that's 4 years old, or I can buy a home that's brand new for $350 in, East Downtown, which is a neighborhood in Houston, right? Okay. So if you're selling a resale home in that neighborhood, I'm going to tell you that it's imperative that you stage your home, because I could go into the new construction community next door and they have brand new homes and they're staged and they're gorgeous and everything's pretty. And yeah, that home actually costs 50 grand more, but they're already sold at that point, right?
Absolutely.
So I think taking a look first at like how long it's going to take to sell, what the competition looks like, how many homes are actually on the market, and things like that. And this is again for like vacant homes. For occupied, I normally will just provide recommendations on things that they need to do as far as removing and decluttering and depersonalizing. We don't frequently stage or do like accessory stages on occupied homes. For higher dollar homes, that does make sense if it needs a little bit of sprucing.
Okay.
I think at that point, it's always good to have like a stager come with you to give those recommendations. So you're not saying that their, heirloom family photos and light fixtures are terrible. The stager is,
okay.
And things like that.
So what in a vacant home, you have are you staging the entire house, or are you just picking like the main rooms, master, living room, family room, maybe outdoor area, something like that?
Yeah. So the most homes that we sell are a 3-story, 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath home. Like that's just like kind of the standard inner loop house.
Okay.
So we normally will stage living room, dining room, kitchen, the guest bedroom downstairs or upstairs, depending kind of as an office, and then the master bedroom and bathroom.
Got it. Okay. Who, all right, so living room, I'm making notes here. Living room, dining room, kitchen, master, office, and potentially guest room. So what do you see is, and again, I know you're in Houston, so the numbers are maybe different, but what do you typically see as the going rate to stage a home? And how, going rate in terms of the cost, and who's picking up that tab?
So it varies. We have some companies that it's as low as probably $2,200 to $2,500 for the first 60-ish days.
Okay.
And then it's anywhere between $500 or $600 to like $800 for any 30-day period after that.
Okay.
For just like kind of that very, very basic package that I just said.
And okay, so 2,500 for 60 days or so, and then 500 to 800 a month after that. Who's paying that?
So for us, unless it is new construction or unless it's something that's a volume situation where there's other listings that we're also listing with this same seller, the seller is going to pay for that.
Okay. And what kind of, again, we're just, freeing here. What kind of pushback do you get on that? And is the seller typically paying that up front, or are they paying it at closing? There's a lot I'm new to staging, so that's why I'm asking. I'm asking just in general.
Yeah. Most of the companies that we work with, that we've worked with at least this year, like they're expecting payment up front. There's got to be companies out there that also take it at closing. You know what I mean? I know that for the Real Vitalize program, I don't know if staging can be included in Real Vitalize, but I think that it may be able to, and that's something that could be pushed to closing, right? So I mean, there's so many companies out there. That's probably an option. As far as pushback, I think that again, it kind of depends on the neighborhood and it depends on the area. Again, if it's a $200,000 house, it's going to fly. There's no need to stage it. If it's something where you know that it needs a little bit more in order to market, I think that it's important. And I think, one, it breaks up the monotony of looking at empty room after empty room after empty room. And two, if there's little marks on the walls or scuffs on the floor or things like that, if it's a vacant home, that's all people are going to be looking at, is the little cosmetic things in the house. So, when there's furniture, it's going to draw their attention to the furniture and to how their furniture could be set up in the house, and it's going to make the home look bigger. So that's normally what I'll tell a seller and explain to a seller. Most of the pushback that we get is obviously on the cost, but we always break down the carrying cost of the home, especially if it's vacant. So for a $300,000 house, if your carrying cost is between $2,000 and $2,500 a month, and without staging, it's going to take 6 months to sell, and with staging, we could sell it in 3 or less. Like, you're just paying for an empty home right now. Wouldn't it make sense to instead of making a mortgage payment, pay it towards staging, and we can have top-notch video, 3D tour, photos, all out, on the web.
Okay, so then my question as a seller would be, all right, Katie, well, do you have success stories that show that homes that are staged are selling faster?
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's specific stats out there that you can Google.
I want Katie Day stats. Give me Katie Day.
No. So I mean, I think it's like 87% in X amount of days or less, type situation. So there's definitely a stat that you can look up and memorize. But what we always show them are the listings that we did stage, and a lot of those listings were listed with another broker and failed to sell, and we sold them with our complete package. So that includes, the photo, the video, the listing concierge, the 3D tour, the social media, the this, the that, but it was also staged. So, you can list it at a higher price and wait for 6 months for a sale, or we can do all of these things. And, this is how we're beating the market. And, these are the homes that we sold after they weren't sold by, ABC brokerage.
I love it. All right. Well, Katie, I think those are all the questions we had there. And that's, I think, everything I have for staging. Do you have anything that from a staging, here are my questions. Do you have anything from a staging perspective that you want to add? And we keep talking about social media. I think everybody needs to be following you on social media. How do they find you?
So my social media, I'm mainly, as far as real estate goes, on Instagram, and that's Move Me to Texas, MOVEMETOTX. And so that's, yeah, Move Me to Texas on Instagram.
Got it. All right, good deal. Well, Katie, I thank you so much for today. I sincerely appreciate it. I appreciate you. I know you're a huge Mike Ferry girl. So if you find yourself coming up to Dallas now that Tom Ferry, I got to correct myself. You're a huge Tom Ferry follower. He's in Dallas now, as you know. If you find yourself up here, let me know and let's get together. Okay. We'll do a CrossFit workout at my gym.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. Cool deal. Katie, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye, guys. Thank you, everybody. I think we got to jump off.